So I saw this video come across my feeds, and I thought it was really interesting because I've done a previous video commentary on one of the Linux experiments videos before. And this is interesting because of the last video that I commented on, and it was about Odyssey and leaving Odyssey and how YouTube has better moderation, what have you. But now, being the same company that owns YouTube and basically shilling for YouTube, all of a sudden it's like, oh, Google search engine sucks. But, I mean,
well, that's what I look like now. At some point you have to admit that you don't have enough hair on your head to keep your own.
Good thing we got sponsor block.
Keep your own, and the wig just was not cutting it for me. Anyway, today we're gonna talk about web search. Web search is in a weird place right now. On the one hand, the major providers like Google and Bing are getting worse by the day. But on the other hand, the alternative providers either depend on these big tech companies for their results, or they tend to still not be as accomplished as the big players, even in their current worsening state. So what can you do to actually get some decent, workable search results, apart from appending Reddit at the end of all of your queries to actually get some human-written stuff? Well,
So, Reddit having human-written stuff is still somewhat debatable at this point. You can see previous videos, but anyway. Yeah, every one of the search engines sucks, and they're just getting worse. Google tailors search results based on algorithms. And then, of course, DuckDuckGo is basically a Bing shim, which I can run on my own, honestly. And even DuckDuckGo's ads go through Bing. So you have to go through Microsoft to get ads in order to get ads on DuckDuckGo. But that's neither here nor there.
we'll look at ways to sort of fix Google, and also we'll look at alternatives, why they can be good in some areas and why they can be disappointing in others. And of
The search screenshot right there, priceless.
course, that's assuming you don't like the direction search
Let
is
me
going
bump.
towards currently, which is everything is a pre-digested, badly written, and misinformed AI answer, or everything is AI-generated articles. If you like
Make
this
it go
direction, then I guess
faster.
you can skip the video. So, I don't think I'm teaching you anything when I'm telling you that Google search and Bing as well have been getting worse and worse. I'm not just talking about the enormous amount of sponsored links everywhere, of ads, or of shopping products, of Google products that are being pushed first. I can't really criticize anyone, even a big tech company, for having deals and ads everywhere. That's how I make a living. It doesn't help me keep hair on my head, but at least it puts food on the table, so it would be pretty hypocritical of me to criticize that. What Google search is losing is accuracy. The pre-made snippets that they display often don't refer to what you're looking for. They're generally related to it, but they're not exact when you're searching for specific things.
So it basically doesn't tell you what you're trying to look for, whereas you can find some other things that do, yeah.
AI summaries that they're starting to add. Well, we all know AI isn't really reliable, and you have to fact-check literally everything it says, so it doesn't quite save any time compared to a regular search, because you would still have to fact-check what you look for. There's also the fact that consumer reviews are now pretty much garbage, generated by review farms. The fact that SEO hacking has made trying to appear in the top results a game and a full industry. And much like regular hacking, Google can only play catch-up. They can never really beat the manipulations that websites engage in. And that's compounded by the current trends in terms of content. You have a lot of AI-generated slop, a lot of articles that could have been one word, and very verbose paragraphs that just tell you nothing, like most of my videos. It is all a mess, and this results in having to type Reddit at the end of your query to get some actual answers written by some actual people. However debatable these answers can be, depending on the topic. I'm someone who never really used Reddit much, but I started doing that as well, because, well, the results in a lot of search engines are just pretty much garbage now. So what can you do about it? Well, we'll look at a few tips to improve Google results, and also...
Okay, so one important thing too is Google, I believe, a little ways back made a deal with Reddit to boost Reddit's pages up in the search results. This happened more than 2 weeks ago, so as of this video, Reddit would have boosted results as compared, well, as of the publishing of the video. Reddit would have still had boosted results compared with the others that are there. So tagging Reddit on there doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get everything that you want. Now, you're also having to deal with the Google algorithm that is tailoring search results to what you tend to want to look for, confirmation bias, things like that. What is interesting, too, is what was it? There was something else that I thought of that I can't remember. Yeah. But Google makes a lot of deals to get certain things up there. And yeah, the AI results, it also depends on the model. I halfway feel like that Google's using for whatever reason, they might be using a smaller model. So the smaller, quicker models tend to have like less accurate results. If you remember my Olama video where I was querying Tiny Dolphin for stuff, it got a lot of things inaccurately wrong. If you're able to, and Google's AI should have access to the results and be able to go through that and work with it. But those smaller models tend to get a lot wrong because there are less tokens that it's trained on, whereas the larger models are a little bit more accurate just due to the fact that they've got more training data that they were able to work with, and the tokens are larger, so it can reference things a lot better. And then you add in research or retrieval augmented generation and the ability to go and refer to a different document to grab more context. There are a lot of things that play into it, and I don't know what Google's configuration for their search AI is.
A few alternatives, but things are still pretty bleak. So, if you want to fight the AI onslaught that is ruining most searches, there is something that you can do. Google started adding AI results to the top of some searches with pre-digested answers that loosely match your query, often adding some nice little hallucinations and misinformation in there. Because the I in AI stands for incompetence currently. So if you still want to use Google search because everything else is, for your use case, not as good, you can at least create a search shortcut that removes a bunch of crap Google adds. To do so, you need to add a custom search engine to your web browser. Most browsers let you do that. In Firefox and its forks, for example, you can go to the settings, then search, then at the bottom you can add a search shortcut that uses the URL written on screen, which is also in the description of the video. You can also add that to a Chromium-based browser by entering another string, also in the video's description, in their search settings as a new search engine. You can make that new engine the default in your settings, and when you're using it, it will remove all AI results and default to the Web tab instead of the All tab of Google Search, so you only get web pages and none of the extra crap. Now, if this isn't enough to restore Google to a workable state for you, then maybe it's time to look at alternatives.
So this is just an example of tailoring, just like any other web browser. You go into the settings, you add the things that you want to tailor your experience to your web, your search, and go from there. So I could go through, and I've got my own search instance added to my web browsers. It is, let's see, so we could find more search engines. Where was it? Add. So yeah, you've got the same basic stuff here. Cancel. If I wanted to, so like Fire Dragon adds Hoogle to it. We could find more search engines to add to Garuda, or add to Fire Dragon. Oh, yeah. Nope. Okay. Anyway, yeah, you've also got the Hoogle options that are there. So if I went into here, I could literally go and search for, and let's tag Hoogle onto there and see what I get. And this is literally pretty much a cleaned up version of the search results that we're getting. We can go into images here. I've got no AI. It looks like it's pretty lightweight because it doesn't like run anything off of it, but yeah. There's a shim in between.
And that's what we're going to do now. So the search engine I currently use myself is DuckDuckGo. The name is kind of dumb, the logo isn't really fantastic, but it's the search engine that, at least in French and English, tends to give me the best results. It also has a slew of options that let you disable a lot of the stuff you might not want from a search engine. It has AI built in, but you can remove that. It has ads, but you can disable them. You don't like the style sheet and the look, you can change that easily enough as well. You can even disable the instant answers that provide pre-digested snippets, even if those aren't AI generated. On top of that, you have bangs, as in you can type an exclamation point and a string of letter, and you get results from another search engine or website. If you want only Reddit stuff, type exclamation point R. If you want to go back to Google results, because this specific query didn't give you anything you wanted, type exclamation point G. And also you can say that you banged Google or Wikipedia, which is always kind of fun to say. Now, DuckDuckGo doesn't have their own search index. They use Bing search APIs quite a lot, and this means that they might in the future have a problem, because Microsoft is shutting down this API. They're keeping existing contracts in place for big customers like DuckDuckGo, but who knows how long it will last. Since there is a new open web index being launched in the EU, maybe they'll pivot to that, maybe there's hope, but we don't yet know if this index is actually any good, if it's complete, and if it's really usable by a search engine to replace something like the Bing search API, so we'll have to see. There is hope, but right now it's mostly Bing results that are re-ranked by DuckDuckGo themselves.
So this is just an issue of DuckDuckGo doesn't have their own index infrastructure. They didn't put in time to do it. Now, DuckDuckGo does give you a lot of options to work with. I've used DuckDuckGo for quite a while, where I was working with it, and I believe I did a video on the Duck AI stuff, which literally uses, like, lets you go and chat with, Mistral, Claude, Llama, ChatGPTs, a couple models, and that kind of deal. So you've got a shim for your AI chats as well. But, yeah, it uses Bing as a backend, and it's able to do most everything in it. I do appreciate the options that they give you. So you can turn off all kinds of stuff, tailor it to your bit as much as you want. So if you don't want to set up your own stuff, then that's one option for you.
Now, the previous one that I used was Ecosia. It also uses Bing quite a lot for their results, but they are trying to move towards their own index as well. The engine is nice. It gives accurate results, and if you have ads turned on, they will plant trees with the money that they get. Although, how efficient this is depends on who they contract that out to. They seem to use a lot of various different organizations that plant trees locally in places where it could actually make a difference, with tree species that could actually make a difference, but it's hard to tell with that stuff. Ecosia also has the equivalent of bangs. You use them with a hashtag symbol and then a letter instead of the exclamation mark.
I don't know why everyone has to have a different way to do it, but yeah.
Gave me better results overall. Now, if you like the concept of the Fediverse, Mastodon, PeerTube, and all that jazz, you might also like SearchNG, or SearchNG. It's a federated meta search engine, meaning it's decentralized and hosted through several instances, either private for your own use and no one else's, or public where you can access the engine, but you will need to ensure that this instance doesn't log stuff. You kind of have to trust the person or organization hosting it.
Trust me, bro.
With every other search engine, though, a lot of the alternatives I'm presenting here said that they don't log anything, they don't collect personal info, they don't save your searches, but you have to trust them to not do that. SearchNG aggregates results from Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, and Quant, and a lot of other engines, and all the private data that might be in the queries is stripped from those when they pass those queries to the engines to get the actual results. You can also enable or disable the engines you don't want to use in your searches. Response times can vary depending on the instance you picked, but the interface is nice enough, and it's one of the rare things that you can self-host if you want. It can be the ultimate I want to be in control experience, because, well, you decide where you host it, on which server, which search engines you want to use or not use, and you decide if you keep your own personal data or not. The problem is, if you only send all of those queries to Google, Bing, and others through one server with one user, they will very easily know that it's one single person making all these queries, and they might start tailoring your results to you or have access to some information about your searches. So it's a trade-off between using a public instance but having to trust the one hosting those, or building your own but then you're not that private.
So the other advantage to Cirx is the fact that you can add your own engines as well. So in the backend configs, they give you templates on how to do it, but I could go into, what is it? Yeah, if I go over to mine, you've got a lot of options with Cirx. Go to preferences. Where is it? Engines is where it is. There are a bunch already. I don't know if you really need to add any unless you've got like some, niche one that you want. They've even got a lot of the niche ones. And they've got the bangs that you're used to from DuckDuckGo even that will search individual stuff or everything overall. You've got, IT stuff. So you can search, I believe the AUR was in here, and a couple others. You have GitHub, GitLab, GitT, SourceHut. You have, it's a staggering amount of stuff. And as an admin, you can set a default for what's on or off. But then on top of that, if you want to take that config that you have, you can actually save your settings. If I go to preferences, let me see. Not restore defaults. You can set your default category even. Autocomplete where it comes through. There is... Where is it? Come on. It's in here somewhere. Okay. Restore your preferences in another browser. This one right here. You copy this URL into another web browser, then it will bring all those settings from your current browser setup to another one. And then you can have your same settings there. So I could open up Qt Browser, which I have set to my own search instance, and run it that way as well.
If you use the Brave browser, you might also know about their search engine, which is called Brave Search. It's an interesting one because it's a very rare case of an engine with its own index. They don't depend on Google or Bing for results. They use their own index entirely, as far as I could find at least, including for images and video. They do have some AI crap baked in, so that's a drawback, but you can disable that in the engine settings if you don't want to use it. The results are more hit or miss than DuckDuckGo for my own use case. There are some moments where I just did not get anything useful when I tried it out. Now, to be clear, other search engines that depend on Bing or Google generally anonymize all the queries, so they don't pass any personal info or identifiable information to Google or Bing, but using the very own index from Brave means that nothing goes to Google or Bing, which might be important to you. Now, Brave is not a company I particularly like. Their stance on crypto, on AI, and stuff like that is not to my liking. I also have my issues with their founder, so I personally won't use anything coming from Brave, but if that's not a problem for you and you really don't want to depend on Google or Bing at all, then it's kind of your only turnkey solution that is entirely free of charge.
So I do appreciate that he mentioned Brave in spite of like the hang-ups with it. There are certain things where I've come across certain projects where they haven't injected their ideologies and politics into their project, but they keep to the core of what they're trying to accomplish with the project. So if it's privacy, then keeping to privacy, that's what's important. That's what we're working on. We're making the best private project, like piece of software, what have you, and that's what matters. And I haven't seen Brave injecting any of that stuff in there. They're creating their own index. They're creating a search engine. Sure, they have AI in there, but so that doesn't necessarily keep me from using Brave. I've used Brave before. Their Leo AI is another paid service. They do sometimes have hit and miss with some queries do result with an AI answer up at the top. Others don't for whatever reason, but it's there. Brave, a lot of you may appreciate Brave for the fact that they do have their own index. The reason why it's probably hit and miss with Brave Search is just due to the fact that they are probably still working on indexing and completing their own index and building it out themselves. And the internet is vast.
Because, yes, there are paid-for search engines, like Kagi, or Kaji, not sure how you pronounce it. I'm gonna say Kagi. I haven't used it myself, but I've heard stories that go in two directions. Some Patreon supporters of mine and viewers of mine told me it was great and they love it. Some others said that the company seems a bit all over the place with questionable decisions, with focus on AI on a web browser, which you might have heard of. It's called Orion, it's coming to Linux, with potential email services in the works for a very small company with very few developers. I've seen indications that they also heavily rely on Yandex for their results, which is a Russian search engine, very much beholden to the current Russian government, so that might be a red flag as well in terms of the results you get and what is censored. Personally, I think there are a bit too many mentions of Kagi being very hand-wavy about all of that stuff, overextending themselves, relying on Yandex and stuff like that. That's enough for me to not trust it, but it exists, it is an alternative, and you get to make the choice if that's important.
So this is another thing of he's still presenting it even though there are issues with it. A lot of people are moving to integrating AI into their search stuff. Yes, it's not very helpful, but depending on the model that they use and the competency of the hardware that they're using to back that model, you can get decently summarized results from it. If the instance of the AI that they're running is able to actually retrieve information from the pages that pop up as results, you can get a halfway decent summary of the information in all the pages overall, which I can appreciate. The problem that you run into with it being hit and miss with AI in particular is when you're summarizing it, you get conflicting information. That's where you may run into really, really problematic results and information being regurgitated to you through the AI.
For you or not. Then you have Mojik, a UK-based search engine focused on privacy. They have their own index as well, meaning they don't use Bing and Google, so at least you're not suffering from the potential biases that these engines implement. There's no tracking, you can get rid of the pre-made summaries from Wikipedia, and it's reasonably fast. Results, though, can be hit or miss because it's a smaller project. In my limited testing, it performed relatively poorly on some searches and very well on others. It is funded by private investors, but apparently the founder retains complete control over the project. I'll try and use it a bit more. I only did limited testing for this video. It seems like an interesting project, but the results were not up to snuff when compared to what I could get for at least what I searched for on DuckDuckGo. Now, there are other
Okay, so this is going to be interesting, it looks like.
options that I wouldn't personally trust myself. First is Startpage. I even used to work with them with a few sponsorships back in the day. They're basically using entirely Google results but with more privacy. However, they've now been bought by System 1. It's an ad tech company that builds targeted ad platforms. There's been no indication that Startpage has to send them any personal or private data, but it is still a bit of a concern in my book. This ad tech company apparently has a majority stake in Startpage, but the founders of Startpage apparently have the ability to reject any technical change that could impact users' privacy, so who knows. It is enough of a red flag for me that I wouldn't use it or recommend it for now. There's also Quant. It's a French search engine that also doesn't store your search data either, and they've teamed up with Ecosia to try and build an index shared by both engines. But for now, Quant still uses big tech providers mostly, and it actually received a notice recently from the French privacy watchdog because they didn't really conform to their GDPR obligations. They do collect some amount of personal data through queries, and they do transmit some of that to Microsoft through Bing searches. Quant didn't declare that or put in place the tools users needed to manage that. They since fixed the issue, but still. Again, not necessarily something I would use right now to...
So the Quant issue, that's an interesting one because you could have... there was a way they could have set that from the get-go, I'm pretty sure, but they didn't. So they were collecting it without letting people know, which can be a concern right then and there. What they did with it, that is a whole other thing as well. There are people that may not care about your personal information. And they may be like, yeah, we care about privacy. We don't collect your information. But really the software that they're using on the back end is by default. And that's the problem that you run into is they, as their philosophy, may not feel like... They may not care about your personal information. They're not planning on selling it. But because of the defaults of the software that they run, it's being logged. And therefore, technically they're collecting it. It's just they should have double checked that everything was configured correctly to not collect that.
Many red flags around it. Now, there might be other search engines that I'm not aware of or I didn't try, but the TLDR is you can either keep using Google and try to remove the crap you don't want, but the results are slowly being gamed by various websites. And the focus of Google on AI means things are unlikely to improve in the future unless current AI large language models actually get good at giving you accurate results and fact-checking themselves, which, when you look at recent models, it seems like they hallucinate more instead of less, so I wouldn't be too optimistic about this. If Google is just not good enough for you, then you can use a search engine that uses results from them or from Bing, like DuckDuckGo, and you'll get those results but ranked with a different algorithm, meaning that sure, it's still what Google are being indexed, so you're not getting anything that those engines deem unworthy of them, but at least they're ranked differently and you might get better results than just using natively Google or Bing. Ultimately, though, you're still beholden to what these companies think is worthy of being indexed. Or you can try an engine that has their own index, like Brave or Mojik, but in my experience, results aren't necessarily as good. So it's still a bit of a dilemma. On the one hand, you have Google, the elephant in the room, which is slowly getting worse and worse, definitely not focused on your privacy, but definitely focused on AI, which is a direction I think a lot of us don't really like. On the other hand, you have alternatives that are either beholden to these search engines or not beholden to them, but in that latter cases, they are still not as good, in my experience, as the worsening state of Google. Of course, this all depends on the language you search in. Different search engines will give you better or worse results depending on the language you use, and it also depends on the type of stuff you look for. I've been told that, for example, DuckDuckGo isn't that great for really technical searches, stuff related to development. But for my own current searches that are just general web information gathering, it performs better than Google. So your mileage may vary. You basically only have to try things out a little bit and keep using the tool that you want. Search engines are that. They're tools, and you have to find the balance that you want to strike between privacy, AI, pre-digested answers, and results quality. Mine, for now, has landed on DuckDuckGo after a while of using Ecosia, but it might change in the future depending on the new index that they decide to go with, if they change from Bing, or depending on how other search engines evolve. Anyway, this will conclude today's video. I hope you enjoyed listening.
Okay, so couple interesting points there is he did have enough integrity to bring up search engines that he has some personal beef over. Like I said, with the instance that I use, so I could go, let's actually use, no, come on, stop it, NV Chad. So if, Okay, so let's do it correctly. So you can see that if I bring up my own search, I've got DuckDuckGo and Brave as two different ones that pop up here. We've got Wibby that is here. Cirx gives you the source of it, but something I've noticed is the order of things that sometimes shifts around, just due to the fact that maybe some things get hit the server before others. So yeah, it can be kind of hairy scary. If I do, what other searches are there? Because even Cirx has some Wikipedia summary blocks that it does. So if I do like Coca-Cola, you can see we've got the info over here, so we can look at Wikipedia, the official website. It's got like a quick little blurb summary from Wikipedia. And then other links as well on top of it. And we've got a short summary from DuckDuckGo up here as well. So it does give you some of that fluff, but the fluff is very, very much tiny, and it kind of fits in with the rest of it, versus a lot of the other search engines are going to like fill the whole block of it. I don't mind so much having the side bar over here filled with the information. What gets me is when we get the block, like this block here, over in the main section of everything, or this summary here taking up like half the screen initially. So you're left with that. So if I go to like Brave search, so I can search with Brave here, we get kind of a similar thing over here. Again, I don't mind that too much, honestly, if we were to do it in Google, but you do see like a breakup within search results here, where it breaks things up based on this, that, and the other. I can scroll down here, and you saw my previous search for NVChad did have videos break into here, but it's really not too bad. But then you see it kind of, yeah. Like he mentioned, you get clutter in the middle here, and like even Reddit shows up here, and that can be a problem. Most things in Cirx, pretty clean for the most part from my experience. But yeah, and then as far as AI tools, AI can be really, really good. As I think I've mentioned previously, if you ask it to give you the references for what it is sourcing from, so that you can actually look at, oh, it sourced this, 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 and this. So why did it say this or hallucinate this? Then you can go dig deeper into it. Again, some models are going to be more competent than others, but I don't think he's using those models necessarily. He's going with whatever default one shows up in X search engine. And again, this is coming from someone who says Google sucks, but then stuck around with YouTube because of the moderation and left Odyssey because of the lack of moderation. Okay, Google sucks, yes, but you're still contributing to Google's overall share of everything with a lot of this, and by leaving behind a lot of the alternate tech, like Odyssey, you end up feeding them even more, which kind of in and of itself becomes a self-defeating cycle. And yes, you talk about ad revenue, and you live off of it. I don't remember if you had any ad block videos, but I know I've done a few myself. I always push uBlock Origin and things like that wherever possible to people, even though it does hurt my bottom line. So having that kind of integrity does tell me a lot, but the fact that he did have the integrity to mention Brave Browser and a few others he had issues with, that's fine. If you liked the content, if you enjoyed it, if you think I deserve it, like, comment, subscribe, leave any criticisms you have or what have you. I appreciate it. Feed that algorithm, like I said, and I will see you guys in the next one.